If the $9 billion price tag is right, if that's what they're looking at in terms of numbers, some context, it would be the absolute biggest acquisition Amazon would ever pull off. So that's sort of a bit of caveat there. At the same time, Slack, I mean, if it gets to that number, they've got investors. It's not just Stewart himself who's making this decision. They want ultimately an exit of some sort, and they might push him for that kind of a deal. Amazon is a good company. It's a good place for a tech company to be a part of, right? Because he only wants to grow things. He wants to expand things. He's a big believer in investing in the things that he buys. So it's not as if it would just buy it and sort of tinker with it. He'd probably put more money into it.
I would doubt if it would be the biggest acquisition as a percentage of Amazon's market value of all time.
At the time when it was doing it,
because, I mean,
right?
we're talking about like 2% of its market value right now. I guess bigger picture, Ed, I am curious as to why messaging apps are a big deal.
Why do you want it? Okay, so it is messaging apps, but we have to think of it as a workplace app, right? And it's not just messaging. There's a lot of aspects of the way Slack works that help offices operate, right? Beyond just pinging your coworker. The other reason in Amazon's case is AWS, which is their real cash cow, their real growth business. They're actually running up against sort of competition with Google and Microsoft in that their cloud services don't have as many sort of apps or sort of software offerings in addition to the cloud server space, right? So
would they make Slack exclusive somehow?
Well, I think they would lose in the long run if they did that, but I think it's like if it's a nice bundle into AWS, right, in addition to other things, I think it's a better sell for AWS services and better compete against these newcomers that are coming in right now.
So if it weren't for Amazon, what would create the value in Slack? I mean, it's a free service right now, correct?
It's a free service. Well, no, there is an enterprise level service that you do have to pay for as companies, and they're working on getting compliance measures built into it so that big banks, for example, Wall Street traders could use it, and I think that's incredibly valuable. Beyond that, I think they're also starting to incorporate other tools like document usage and storage and kind of tracking as well, which is a lot of companies need to some degree, and I think that's where Slack, what the messaging part is just the tip of it. There's a lot more that.
And is it just a clean slate or I guess a more custom-built version of email? They're all displacing in the workplace some things like email or not?
Well, I don't think email will ever fully go away. I don't, it's people are still used to it and it still has its uses, but I think it's overwhelmingly moving towards messaging, right? Because there's business moving fast, right?
Yeah.
You need to get the immediate response.
No, it's true at CNBC, but I've been able to avoid it mostly because I'm going to have to be dragged onto a new messaging platform. But for people who are using it, they say their email usage has dropped dramatically. So I can see from Microsoft, it's a good way to hedge the business. If you're using Outlook less, it's probably better if they have a platform that you're using more. Right. For Amazon, different story.
It's a different story, but you have to understand what the context around Amazon is. Jeff Bezos, he's really building a portfolio for Amazon. It's not just a retail business. It's not, he's really building in as many other things he can. This is part of it. It bolsters AWS potentially, but again, it's like workplace productivity is a whole other avenue that he can get into with this if they do the deal.
So now that it's on the table, so to speak, if this is when Slack goes, do you think there's going to be other bidders?
Well, yeah, so if I'm Google, I'm like, oh my God, I need to look at this now because Google Cloud is another one of their growth businesses, something they're investing more in, and I think, they've got company, that they're kind of a latecomer to that, but they've got a lot of great technology, and I think they're running into some issues themselves. So they need more services as well for their cloud offering, and I think if I'm them, I'm going to go look at Slack too.
There's other ones, right? It's not just Slack. I mean, we mentioned that Microsoft launched Teams, but there's others in this messaging space? I'm just trying to think if people start to, have this as a bolt-on feature and everyone has to have one, only one person gets Slack.
Well, there are a lot of others, but I think I would caution that, what makes messaging valuable is its connectivity, right? In other words, if not enough workplaces are ultimately using it, it loses value. So we talked about will it supplant email. Right now, when you're on your workplace Slack, you're only communicating with your fellow coworkers. If I want to Slack someone at a different company, I can't, or it's harder to do that. Once and if Slack does open up rooms between companies, it really is it changes that game. Yeah. And I think they sort of win the network effect. And any other messaging services out there, that much farther behind, trying to catch up.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.